our learning objectives. First goal: discuss what is curriculum mapping. Second goal: create a course mapping with intended learning outcomes based on the curriculum guide. Third, relate the importance of curriculum mapping in real-life situation. And now, let's start our discussion. What is curriculum map? A curriculum map identifies where in the curriculum learning outcomes are addressed, what is taught, where, and how. Or conversely, the mapping process may help you determine whether your curriculum and learning outcomes are aligned and may reveal gaps in your curriculum. Or in other words, curriculum mapping is a reflective process that helps teachers understand what has been taught in a class, how it has been taught, and how learning outcomes were assessed. The curriculum mapping process results in a document known as curriculum map. Most curriculum maps are graphical illustrations that consists of a table or matrix. And now, let us not be confused between curriculum maps and lesson plans. A curriculum map should not be confused with lesson plan. Why? It is because a lesson plan is an outline that details what will be taught, how it will be taught, and what resources will be used to teach it. Most lesson plans cover a single day or another short time period, such as a week. Curriculum maps, on the other hand, offer a long-term overview of what has already been taught. It is not unusual for a curriculum map to cover an entire school year. Alright? Now, let's have course mapping. Course mapping, also called charting, allows the department to identify which courses address each of the learning outcomes. Or, in other words, course mapping is a method to align instruction with the desired outcomes or learning outcomes. Mapping allows to find gaps in the curriculum and determine the best methods for assessment. So that is course mapping. And now, let's have the purposes of curriculum mapping. First, demonstrate the alignment between curriculum and a program's SLOs. SLO meaning student learning outcomes. Second, identifies which course contain learning experiences which help student achieve student learning outcomes. So for these purposes, in curriculum mapping, there is really indeed a need to demonstrate and identify alignment between curriculum and a program student learning outcome. Why? It is because through that way, we can be able to reveal gaps in the curriculum and also to make sure that we can achieve the student learning outcomes. Third, shows the extent to which student learning outcomes are addressed. Fourth, details which courses contain, include, or have assessments of student learning outcomes. In curriculum mapping, of course, again, curriculum and learning outcomes should be aligned and it should details as to its content for us to obtain the student learning outcomes. And that was the 4 purposes of curriculum mapping. And now, let's have the benefits of curriculum mapping. First, show where gaps are. If student learning outcomes are not being addressed sufficiently. Second, can result in the refinement of student learning outcomes and assessment methods. As the curriculum mapping, we can be able to see student learning outcomes that are not being addressed sufficiently, and through that way, we can be able to easily have a refinement in our SLO and assessment method. Third, points to where, when, and how assessment can take place. Can identify existing sources of data embedded assignment. Again, curriculum mapping identifies where in the curriculum learning outcomes are addressed, what is taught, where, and how. So it means that through this, we can identify existing sources of data. Fifth, contribute to foundation of program assessment. And sixth, provides an overview of curriculum. Curriculum mapping is indeed important since it serves as a foundation of program assessment and an overview of the curriculum. So it is really a must for us and to everyone to learn and of course know how to create a curriculum map. And that's it for my part. I'll be giving the floor to Ms. Torrejas for her topic, how to create a curriculum map.
Good day, everyone. I am Maria Jala Torrejas, and I am going to discuss about and how to create a curriculum map. So before starting on creating a curriculum map, we should learn what is curriculum map. So then again, according to the previous reporter, Ms. Michelle Dahan, a curriculum map identifies where in the curriculum learning outcomes are addressed, what is taught, where, and how. So this time, we will know on how to create a curriculum map. So note that a curriculum map includes standards and sequence. So standard means state, governments, or other standards related to the class. And this sequence is the order in which standards will be taught in the class. So how to create a curriculum map? Step 1. Begin with a table with SLOs listed on a vertical axis and all courses learning experiences listed across the horizontal axis at the top. So we will know this later. Step 2. Each SLOs or the student learning outcomes will have a row. Each course will have a column. So here is an example of a curriculum map. So this one is an example template and how you will make a curriculum map. So looking at the left side of the table where we can see the SLO or the student learning outcomes, which will correspond to the upper part of the table, which are the specific courses. Let's say for example, calculus. So in subject calculus, we all know that there are specific learning outcomes. So here under column 2, row 2, we can put here what will be the possible learning outcomes in the subject calculus. So in this template, we can see that what are the learning outcomes of the specific courses, or what are the possible outcomes that the students may practice in the specific courses. So next, step number 3. For each SLOs or student learning outcome, indicate in which course or courses that the outcome is addressed. Each SLO must be addressed at least once. If not, then the outcome on its place in the program should be re-examined. So every learning outcome or student learning outcome must be met or must be addressed bisan ka isa lang kay if not it will be re-examined kay useless ra ang imong student learning outcome kung dili ra man gani nimo ma-achieve. So looking at the table, every learning outcomes it should have a specific course, because of course you cannot put learning outcomes if you do not have a course or specific course. So this template is just an example, pero sa lain nga school they will provide their own template on how you will create a curriculum map. So next, step number 4. Step number 4, describe the level to which the outcome is addressed. It may be IPM or introduced, practice, and mastered. In introduce, it stated that it indicates students or introduce the outcome to the students. Next, practice. It indicates the outcome is practiced or students afforded opportunities to practice. Next is mastery. It indicates the students have had sufficient practice and can now demonstrate mastery of the degree exit level. So every student learning outcome it can be addressed or dapat ma-met kay, as I said earlier, para sa naay sense agi mo ang student learning outcome kay useless lang kung dili nimo ma-met ang imuhang giset or set na possible learning outcomes. So here an example table on how you will assess students or how you will give an assessment to students. So as we can see in the table, under course 1, SLO number 1, naay nakabutang naay. So it depends upon the teachers on what assessment he or she will be used to assess his or her students. So every learning outcome must provide what assessment to be used or what method to be used or unsayang method iyang gamiton para i-assess iyang student to attain the learning outcomes para sa mahibaw-an sa teachers kung asarang taman ang nahibaw-an sa iyang mga students. So next, step number 5. Provide the method of assessment for the program level assessment. So, here in the table, in step 5, we can see that there is a direct method and indirect method. But first, let us know what is a direct method. So a direct method is a method that is used when the teacher is in the classroom and gives training to the students. So an example of this is a standardized test, certificate exams, locally developed tests or tests, questions, rubrics for evaluating such as essays or papers, lab work, exam questions, capstone projects, exhibits, performance or presentations, and comprehensive exams. So, mo ni mga example sa mga direct method. Kaning direct method kay kanang mag-lecture ng mga teachers tapos sa mga students kay maminaw lang. Unlike sa indirect method. Indirect method is a student-oriented method in which in this method, teachers gives important or necessary materials to the students rather than offering a live lesson in the classroom environment. Indirect method intertwined with constructivism, in which in philosophical view, it argues that people learn better and more from their own experiences. So, like for example, kanang groupings nga na ang mga students manana kay mo ay mag-gather mismo sa mga informations in which ang mga students kay murag mas maka-learn sila kasi sila mismo mo ay mag-collect sa mga information, unlike sa direct method na kanang murag mag-spoon feeding bitaw ang mga teachers kay di ba mag-lectures man ang kanang nasa direct method. So ani sa indirect method kay as I said earlier, naka-intertwine ni siya sa constructivism. So ang mga students ani kay murag independent na inag kanang kuan sa mga lesson, inagkahibaw sa mga lesson, kaya sila naman mismo mo ay mag-collect sa mga information. So, examples of indirect methods are surveys by students, alumni, employer, exit interviews, focus groups, job placement rates, course evaluations. So here is an example template again on how you will create a curriculum map. So as we can see, nanay nakabutang nga test, under sa introduce, sa practice kinay nakabutang nga quiz. So ingan na inaganang gama sa curriculum map, dapat magkahibaw ta og unsa nga assessment ang gamiton nato. Pa-assess sa ato mga students kung kanang unsa may mga possible na mga assessment para ma-measure nimo ang kanang knowledge sa imong students. And as I said earlier, every learning outcome must provide what assessment to be used or what method to be used to be assessed to attain the learning outcome. So, dapat kahibaw jud mismo ang mga teachers kung unsa ang mga assessment na gamiton para ma-measure ang learnings and knowledge ng students. So, I guess that's all for my part, and yeah, thank you, and I hope you learned something.
Good day everyone, my name is Marilisa S. Agukoy and I will be the one to discuss the topic Intended Learning Outcomes based on DepEd Mathematics Curriculum Guide. So what are learning outcomes? So I have here two definitions of learning outcomes. The first definition of learning outcomes is that learning outcomes are specific statements of what students will be able to do when they successfully complete a learning experience, whether it's a project, course, or a program. Second definition is that they are always written in a student-centered, measurable fashion that is concise, meaningful, and achievable. I have here an example of an intended learning outcome based on the DepEd Mathematics Curriculum Guide. So, in the upper part, you can see the course or the course that you have been taken. So, it is just for an example. So, here we have patterns and algebra, measurement, statistics and probability, numbers and number sense. So in the first row, you can see the 4 intended learning outcomes since we have 4 courses. So the first course, the first intended learning outcomes is for patterns and algebra. So the first is uses different strategies, looking for a pattern, working backgrounds, etc. to solve for the unknown in a simple equations involving one or more operations on whole numbers and fractions. So it is given here an example, 3x blank plus 1 is equals to 10. So the unknown is solved by working backwards. So for the intended learning outcomes, example number 2, it is to calculate time in a different world time zones in relation to the Philippines. So it is under measurement, so it will be mastered, and the teacher decide to give a quiz. So the teacher decided to give a quiz to achieve these intended learning outcomes. And as for example number 3, organizes data in a tabular form and present them in a line graph. So it is under statistics and probability. So it is said it is to be practiced and to be mastered through a project. So probably or maybe the teacher will let the student do a project in a form of a graph. So that is the thing to do to achieve the intended learning outcomes for the statistics and probability course. Last one is under the numbers and number sense. So the intended learning outcomes is to add and subtract simple fraction and mixed numbers with or without regrouping. So here, it is said that it is to be practiced through a quarterly quiz or quarterly exam. So this table is just an example. The assessment that is being used in this intended learning outcomes in every courses are just an example. So the teacher will be the one to assign what type of assessments she will be using to attend or to achieve the intended learning outcomes she or he had prepared.